Alright guys, let's get on with today's topic. Today we're going to look at optimizing file services. Okay, so the next topic. So what does that mean? Today we're going to look at the file server resource manager, which allows us to create quotas, as well as file screens, as well as reports. And we'll look at the distributed file server. And also, obviously, that's going to come up in your assignment. Okay, so today's objective is to actually look at the file server resource manager, and we're going to use that to create quotas, file screens, and storage reports. Like I mentioned, we're going to implement. We're going to talk about classification and file management, and then we're going to look at DFS and DFS replication. Okay, so first of all, the file resource manager. And obviously, when we're talking about file servers, we're talking about storage, we're talking about capacity. I'm sure the general rule is that it doesn't matter what size server you get. It doesn't matter how much storage you get. Eventually, your users are going to be filling them up. Okay, they'll be putting all sorts of stuff on there, and it's going to be all filled up. And that's going to be a constant problem. You're always going to be running out of space and so forth. It's not such a big deal. It's not a bad thing that they're filling up. It's because obviously if they're ideally using it correctly, they're actually filling up with actual data they actually need to make money for the company. So that's fine. But the problem is, what happens if there's a few users who sort of just put massive amounts of files on there, whether they're important or not important? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, for example, if we all, like in this classroom, for example, we all need to use the ISO files now and then. Okay, that's fine. We have one location where the ISO files are stored and we store it once, and that's fine. But what if you guys all decided to get a copy of the ISO files and put it somewhere on your H drive? Okay, and if you all did that, then it's just like storing the same file multiple times or storing useless information, I'm saying. Okay, in the other subject, we talked about data deduplication, and that really helps with duplicate files. But obviously today we're going to talk about how we can actually prevent a single user or single group of users from actually using more than they should have. Okay, so obviously we're going to do that by implementing what's called a quota. Okay, guys, all understand what quota is. It's just like with your mobile phones. You probably know that every month you get a certain amount of data allowance, and that's the download quota, how much you're allowed to download. Whereas what we're talking about is a quota of how much you're allowed to store on the file server. So these things are what's called capacity management challenges, and they include determining the existing usage, establishing and enforcing the storage use with policies, and anticipating future requirements. So first of all, how do I even know how am I using my current file system? There's a whole bunch of files there, but how do I even know what's important, what's not important, what types of files here, who actually is using the files, who's not? There's no way I can tell just by looking at the file system, unless I go to every single file, look at the owner, look at the size, and so forth. The next point is establishing and enforcing their storage use with policies, so rules. Okay, rules. We've been speaking about rules in other ways. In this case, it's rules with storage, and that's what we're talking about with quotas. That's a rule, isn't it? Anticipating future requirements. So what do we need in the future? How can we take preventive actions to actually mean that our users are not going to get to a situation where they're saying, hey, I need to store this important data, but there's no room. When we're addressing capacity management challenges, we can analyze how storage is used, who's using it, what type of files there are on the system. Wouldn't it be annoying if you actually had a file system where you've spent heaps of money on there, and people are complaining that it's already full, but then when you do an analysis or you do a report, you find out it's full with AVIs and MP4s. Would that be a little bit annoying to you? If you're running this server for production use and it's actually for proper business files, but people are filling it with personal MP4s and movies and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Sharing amongst themselves. That would be really annoying, wouldn't it? So basically, we need to define a storage resource management policy and implement policies to manage storage growth and implement a system for reporting and monitoring. So you have to keep an eye on these things, because you know what? It's just really tempting, isn't it? There's a centralized file store. we have 100 people using this file store. Hey, Bob, I watched this awesome movie that I downloaded from the internet illegally, and now, wouldn't you like it? I'll put it on the S drive for you so you can get a copy. Firstly, that's an inappropriate use of our company's storage. Secondly, your company could be in big trouble if they actually found that you got illegal content on your storage system. So you need to actually have a policy, rules, and have a way of enforcing the policies. So FSRM, file server resource manager, enables you to implement storage quotas, file screening, storage report management, classification management, and file management tasks. Okay, so let's talk about each one of those individually. So with quotas, like we mentioned, it's amount of space or amount of data that you're allowed to store on the storage. Okay, so basically it means everyone gets fair use, not that one person uses 99% of the file system, whereas the rest of the company uses only 1%. Okay, quotas means it's an equal distribution amongst the different users in a work group or different groups in a company. So use quota management to limit disk space usage and provide notification when thresholds are reached. So let me just quickly show you an example of this. So we all have a H drive, don't we? Okay, you guys got a H drive, I've got a H drive, and this H drive is our what's called a home directory. And from FireICW, you know exactly how we can create a home directory. But if you notice, if I right click on my H drive and I look at the properties, what's the maximum capacity? About 230 megabytes, okay? I want you guys to do the same thing. Find your H drive, right click on it, and show me what is the capacity, okay? So anyone can tell me what's your capacity? 50 megs. Do you think that the whole drive that H drive is actually sitting on is actually 50 megs? Or do you think it's actually 230 megs? No. Okay, basically this is what you can see. Okay, you guys can see 50, I can see 230. Maybe I'm a little bit lucky because I'm a lecturer, but you guys are students. And to be honest, 230 or 50, it's not really big enough to do anything these days. But basically, the reason why we are seeing only 230 or 50 megs on our home drive is because each of us has been allocated a quota of 50 megs for students, 230 for staff. Okay, so that is why we can only see that amount of space. Whereas the actual hard drive this home directory is actually sitting on is probably terabytes in size. Okay, but we can't see it all because we only have access to a quota of 230 megs for me and 50 megs for you. So basically, effectively to the user, what the quota does is it presents the drive or the network share or however you access the file system with only the amount that you've been allocated in the quota. The quota will send notifications as well. Okay, so basically when we do the quotaing, you'll realize that, hey, when we configure the quota, we could actually configure a hard quota or a soft quota. Okay, keep that in mind, hard quota or soft quota, hard limit or soft limit. Okay, so that refers to quotas. So a hard quota means you hit this amount, stopped, no more. Okay, you can't store any more information, and you're prevented from storing more information, and you get notified and all that kind of stuff. But soft quota means that you hit this amount, it will send you a notification, you'll get logged, and it will be in the report, but you're still able to store a little bit more. Okay, so basically keep that in mind because it will definitely be in the test at the end of the semester, end of the term, soft quota versus hard quota. So quota notification can do any of the following. It can send an email notification. Okay, it can log an event in the event viewer. So don't forget the event viewer is our Windows logs, and it can also run a command or script or program, and it can also generate a storage report. So what if we had a whole heap of people that we want to put quotas for? We can actually create what's called a quota template. It's basically, just like anything. Remember we talked about user templates before? A template is basically a set of settings that you want to pass on to someone every time we use it. Okay, when we create a quota template, we define the space limit, we define whether it's a hard quota or a soft quota, and we actually define the set of notifications to be generated when the quota limit is reached. And then if it's a template, we can just grab this template and create a new quota with this template for this user or for this group of user, and we won't have to go through each and every one of those settings again. It's already done for us. We just use it, and it's already predefined. The FSRM provides a set of default quota templates in the quota template node. So let me just maybe start my server, and we'll see some examples of this. Okay, so while that's starting up, we'll keep on talking. So basically, the FSRM already has some quota templates, and obviously we can use them or we can create our own. Okay, here's an example of the quotas. For example, to the C drive, so we're talking about the specific local C drive here. So we're on the file server, if you like to think of it. And for the C drive users, there's a hard quota of 250 megs from what I can see. Okay. And on the other folders, like this administrator, there's a 250 meg, it's a hard quota as well. And you can see right now it's actually 23% full, and so forth. Let me just quickly switch over to my virtual machine and see if that's actually started up. So just a little bit longer. So in the file server resource manager, you can monitor quota usage by viewing the quota information in the FSRM console, and we can generate what's called a quota usage report. So basically it's a report that shows you, all the quotas, who's almost full their quota, who's actually completely filled their quota. And we can also use this to create a soft quota. Okay. Well, obviously, like I've been saying, anything you can do with the graphical user interfaces, you can do with PowerShell. And here with this get FSRM quota, we can actually display the quotas to screen on the PowerShell. Let me just quickly come here. So here's my server. And I'm logging in. And obviously it's a so it's a additional role. Okay, so file server resource manager. And obviously I have to install that as an additional role if I want to use it, just with, as well as all the other things that we might look at. So hopefully this installs very quickly. So once we've installed it, then we can actually define the quota and create usage reports, as well as do what's called file screens. We might just keep on going while that's happening. So the next thing we're going to talk about is called file screens. Okay, so if you don't understand what that means, just think of fly screens. Okay, what's the point of a fly screen? You keep the flies out, right? But let the cool breeze come in, isn't it? So basically you open the window, you're letting the fresh air come in, but you're keeping the flies out. Okay, that's a screen. It's a filter, isn't it? Okay, so basically a file screen is just like a fly screen, but instead of keeping flies out, we're keeping some files out. Not all files, just some files. Just like a fly screen doesn't keep out everything, it lets the dust in, doesn't it, if you potentially. So a file screen keeps certain files out. And we can actually create file screens that keep specific types of files. For example, like we said, what if you discovered that people were storing AVIs or MP4s on your file system? That's bad, isn't it? So maybe if we don't need those type of files for a legitimate business purpose, maybe we can create a file, no, I was calling it a fly screen, a file screen that specifically prevents people from storing MP4s or AVIs. Okay, so let me see if my server's actually finished installing. Yes, it has. So to launch the file resource manager, we just click tools from the server manager, go to file resource manager, and then we'll look at the quota management. So right now there's no quotas, as you expect. Like I said, there's some built-in quotas already there, templates. So these ones are for you to use if you feel like they're actually appropriate for you to use. Or we can actually create our own. We can create a new quota template. Or if we don't want to create a template, we can just create a new quota and we browse where do we want to apply this quota. And let's say that we got a folder called production. Okay, just remember our work assignment. We've got a department called production. This is their folder. We don't want people in production to just go crazy and store files there and then take up more space on this area than what their fair share is. So we can actually create a quota for production. We can actually specify a limit, which is based on the templates, or you can define a custom limit. Okay, and if we look at the custom properties, we can actually we can give it a description. We can describe it as production staff quota, and we can say right now it's defaulting to 100 megs. Okay, that's not realistic, is it, for a realistic business? Let's just put it as 5 gigs. Okay, in a realistic business environment, we've got terabytes of storage. Okay, and for a individual user that we actually want to give them 5 gigs of storage into our production folder is a reasonable amount. Okay, it's not so stingy that they can't really do their work. It's quite enough to put for most people to have documents, PowerPoints, projects, Visios, Excel spreadsheets. That's plenty of space for those kind of things. And obviously, this is just the starting point. If they need more, it's a negotiated fact, isn't it? You might start with 5 gigs, and they say, "Hey, for the business we do, production." Well, production are the sort of factory floor type people. They probably don't need 5 gigs really, but let's say they did. They could just negotiate as a whole work group to say they need more. So next choice is, do we make it a hard quota or soft quota? So remember, the hard quota do not allow users to exceed this. Well, maybe we're going to be a little bit generous. In this case, we're going to use a soft quota, which means we're going to allow people to exceed this 5 gigs. But once they've hit the 5 gigs, we'll get notified, they'll get notified, and we can start monitoring their use. So what about... So notification threshold. So what do you want to notify them when the quota reaches 85% or 50%, for example? Okay, maybe 85 is a reasonable amount, but we're going to just change it up. We're going to say 50%. Once they reach their 50%, they're going to be told you've reached 50%. Just like on your mobile phones, when you reach your 50% data usage, you probably get an SMS that says you've used up 50% of your data. This is the same idea. So what are we going to do? We're going to send an email to the following. I'm going to send one to the administrator, yourself, the person who's in charge of the network. And we're also going to send an email to the user so they know. Okay, this is the message body, which actually will basically fill out some of these variables with the information that's defined in this quota. We'll click OK. Yeah, it's just saying that I haven't defined my SMTP servers yet. So let me click OK to that. And okay, let me cancel that. So what it's saying is I actually haven't defined my SMTP server. So if I want to send email, I have to have an email server, right? So basically, I might have a server on my network called mail.w2k16.ad.local, and default administrator could be admin at w2k16ad.local or some other email account. And we don't need to test it because in reality, I don't have an email server. Okay, in your reality for your project here, you don't have an email server. So I'm just going to define that as my pretend email server. In real life, obviously, you would have an email server, but we're not going to just go set up a whole email server in the subject, which is not part of this subject, just so we can do that. So here we'll do that quota again. We'll browse for the production folder. So we're doing exactly the same thing as before, but we're going to we've actually defined the email server now. Okay, save the quota as a template. I don't want to save this as a template. Okay, if I did, I could save it as a template at this stage, but I'm choosing not to right now. And here's a quota. Okay, so on this production folder now, anyone who accesses this folder will have a quota of 5 gigs. Is that easy enough to understand, guys? A quota? Okay, so I'm sure everyone's dealt with quotas before, especially with your mobile downloads. That's an example of a quota, and this is just a file storage quota. Then we spoke about file screens, didn't we? So file screens is like how we can keep certain files out. So obviously we can create file screens and we can have file screen templates, and these are some examples. So for example, audio video files, you can see that if we actually edit this, these are all the type of extensions of audio video. So you'll find that, hey, if we've thought of this, probably someone else has already thought of it as well. But let's say there's a type of files, there's a new type of files that it's actually not been defined anywhere, and it fits into audio video. We can actually right click on this file type, file group, and we can see that these are all the extensions. Oh, yeah.
Can someone just rename the extension?
Yes. So if we want to include something else, let's say there's an extension called DivX that it's not in there. We can add that to there. Okay. And that's a good question, Anthony. It's a very good question. These file screens are simple file screens, and they base themselves based on the extensions. All right. So let me just continue to do one. So I'll create a file screen, and I can again browse the path. Let's pick on that production folder again. So people shouldn't be putting anything like videos on the production folder, and I can actually tell it to block audio video files, which is what I modified just then. Or we can actually define something else, and we can actually create a new file group, and we'll call it, let's see, I don't know, VMs. Okay, we all know what VMs are, virtual machines. So we don't want people to put virtual machines on this drive because they're huge, aren't they? Files to include, we're going to do star.vhd, which is a sort of like Hyper-V virtual disks. Star means anything. It's a wildcard, okay? Just like when you use it to search things and stuff like that. Star.vh, oops. Did I put this dot yet? VHDX, which is generation 2 Hyper-V virtual machines. Star.vmdk, which were, oops, I forgot the dot. VMware virtual hard disk. So let's say that this is what I want to put in there. Okay, so this is what's included. We can also put excluded here. Let's see, we can do admin pc.vmdk. So let's say there's one particular file you want to that fits this file type, but we want to actually exclude from this filter. We could actually put it here. Okay, generally not a big deal. I'm just going to remove it, and we'll click OK. So now we can actually go and choose VMs, okay, which is what I've defined just then, and I'm going to put it here. And no, we're going to do it without saving as a template again. And basically what we're saying is on this production folder, no one's allowed to store virtual machine, virtual disk files. Reason is they usually take up a whole heap of room. And obviously production people who are working in like the factory floor probably don't need to run virtual machines from their shared folder, okay? So you get what I'm doing, guys? Sort of makes sense? So basically the file screens block a certain type of files by matching the extension by using a wildcard. It means anything .this. And what Anthony asked was, couldn't someone just change the file extension? You're right, exactly right. This does not stop someone from actually changing the file extension or removing the file extension or changing the file extension to something else. Okay, so this is not to block every person in the whole universe from being able to do this. This is, like I said, who's a typical user? What do I always say? My mother. probably is a typical user. Would my mother know or be knowingly changing a file extension? Probably not. And you'll find that that's probably most users. Most users don't want to do the wrong thing deliberately. But it's just that sometimes they accidentally do things that may be against what we want. So basically, this is not meant to keep out someone who's so super knowledgeable and this and that. Easy to get around it. But it's meant for the typical user who's just accidentally putting this wrong type of files onto the server rather than on their local drives. Okay, so that's why this is for. From here, we can obviously create file screen templates. Here's some built-in ones that's already there. From here, we can actually define the file groups like I just did with the virtual machine files, or we can modify existing files so that file groups so we can actually add more extensions to it or remove an extension that we don't want to include. Okay, and we can also create a report. Okay, to be honest, my server here doesn't have too much data on there at all, so these reports are sort of pointless. It's really it's really useful when actually you have a system that people are using. People are actually putting data on there, manipulating data, reaching their quotas, and so forth. And that's when we can actually create a report. And from that report, we can say, hey, Alex is the highest user of data, storage of data on this file system. Maybe this guy needs it for his work. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's just exploiting the system. Maybe I need to have a chat with this guy. Okay, so remember what counts against your quota. When you create or copy a file to the file system, so let's go to that production folder. So if I create a new file, and don't forget, who am I logged in as? I'm logged in as administrator. I'm not sure. I can't prove that to you. So I can type in the command, who am I? And I am the domain administrator. Okay. So when I create this file, if you remember, when we look at the advanced properties, we have what's called a, let's have a look at it, owner. Okay, so when we actually created the file, who created it? In this case, it was me, the administrator, and the owner of this file is the administrator. So therefore, for this particular file, it counts towards my quota, the administrator's quota. All right, let's have a look at the quota. So if we look at it, there's 0% full. So right now, like I said, there's no data on my system. So there's not much you can see there. So let's get back to our PowerPoint. So file screening management consists of creating the file screen, like I showed you, defining file screen templates, creating file screen exceptions if you want to, and defining or creating the file groups, like I did with the virtual machines file group. So what are file groups? File groups are used to define a namespace for a file or file screen exception or a storage report. File groups consist of set of file name patterns. So that's why we use the star dot something. That's a pattern, isn't it? Anything dot this fits this pattern. To include, so if it's included, it means it's part of the screen that's been blocked. If it's excluded, it means of this group of files that's going to be blocked, this particular file is going to be allowed through. Okay. So what are file screen templates and file screen exceptions? File screen templates provide a definition for newly created file screens, enables control over file screens created from templates. So basically, what does that mean? Whoa. The great thing about using a template is if I use a template to create a quota or a file screen, and later on I realize, hey, that template was a little bit wrong. I didn't include this particular file type. Or I didn't do this, I didn't limit this, or I set the thing, I put 5 megs instead of 5 gigs, let's say. I can go back and go to the template, and I can change the setting which I got wrong to wherever it should be. And because all these other things were created from the template, it automatically updates all those other quotas or screens, okay? So file screen exceptions enable you to override file screens for a specific location or file group. Storage reports. Storage reports provide information about the file usage on a file server. The types of storage reports include duplicate file reports. Obviously, Yeah, that might be important. How many times are we storing this Windows Server 2016 ISO? It's about 6 gigs. It's pretty important. If we store it more than once, that we have a reason for storing more than once, isn't it? There's a file screen audit. Okay, so auditing who's actually trying to put files onto a system and being told, no, that type of file is not allowed. Okay. Files by file groups, owner or property. So basically we can actually do a report to say, we have this many audio video files. Okay, or we can say that this owner has such and such amount of files. So basically these reports allows us to play around with what information or how we're going to sort the information by. And we can also have reports of folders by property. We can do a report based on large files. What are the largest files on the system? The least and most frequently, the least and most recently accessed files. So basically, if you do a least recently accessed files, means, hey, I might have files that are sitting on there that no one's using. Maybe it's time just to archive that. So that's in a different type of storage if we're doing this manually. And obviously we can do a report based on quota usage. Okay, so let's continue. So what is a report task? So report task is a job, basically, okay? So basically we can actually schedule reports by creating a report task. So basically, if we want a report to run, not just today because we wanted to create it today, or if we want to run it every month. So every month we can review who's got the most amount of files, who's using most quota, what are the biggest files and so forth, just like we talked about just before. If we want to do that every month, instead of you manually running it every month, you can actually create what's called a report task and it will be scheduled to run every month. We can specify which volumes or which folders it's running on. We can specify what type of report it's going to be, and we can specify which parameters to use, how often to generate the report, and which format the report should be saved in. So obviously if it's running every month, let's say, we can review it as a monthly routine, that every month we identify the biggest users or the biggest files and we take some action. Okay, in the event that someone's abusing their storage capacity, then we can take some action. Well, maybe another situation could be just that, to confirm that everyone's doing the right thing. So implementing classification and file management tasks. Okay, so let's have a look at this. What is file classification? We sort of do this in our heads, don't we? We already do this in our heads as human beings. We know that if I'm going to put a resource on the Learn site, that's a worksheet file. Okay, if I save this worksheet file, I can use it later to do my practicals or do my assignment. That's a PowerPoint file. I'm not going to use that to do my practicals or worksheets, am I? I'm going to use that to learn the theory. So we already do this as human beings, and we know what. So we might have our own file management, and we will say PowerPoints go here, worksheet files go here. This is my bank statement. I'm going to encrypt my bank statement so no one can actually look at it if they got my portable hard drive. So we sort of already have we do it as humans already. But that's annoying if we have to manually do it all the time for a large amount of files, isn't it? So therefore, what file classification is actually allows you to classify certain types of files or certain files, and allows you to automate a mechanism to create and assign a classification property to the files. For example, if we have a file called payroll.report, well, as human beings, we know that this is pretty sensitive information and maybe we should keep a secret, shouldn't we? But instead of actually manually doing this, what we can do is we can create a classification rule to say, hey, this type of file or this file that comes out every month should be secure. So because of this classification rule, we actually determine that it should be secured. So we're going to actually lock this file up by encryption. So basically it allows us to automatically classify certain files or certain types of files and actually perform an action on it. So a classification rule is a file classification infrastructure scans the files automatically and then classifies them according to the contents of the file. So it's not necessarily the file or file name or the file extension, it's the content of the files when we create these rules. When planning the classification implementation, we need to identify the classification, determine the classification method, so what we're looking for. Okay, determine the schedule, how often is it going to run? Is it going to run every day? Is it going to run every week, every month, so forth? And well, obviously we need to perform a review. Is the files that are meant to be classified as this being classified as that? Or is something not working properly? What are file management tasks? File management tasks enables administrator to perform operations on files based on the assigned classification properties. For example, some of these management tasks can be that this is a payroll report. It gets moved from this location to the payroll reports location automatically for you. Archive expired files, like we said, these files are last month's report. These are now expired. So we can actually put them into archive or zip or something like that. Delete unwanted files. So this is the log files. Okay, it's getting this big. It's 3 months old. Maybe we don't need it. We'll delete it. We can actually automatically rename files. So this is a payroll report file, and we can, instead of actually just keep calling a payroll report file, because we could have 20 different payroll report files called payroll report files, we may want to rename this and append today's date. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is DFS, and obviously this is going to be important as far as your assignment goes, and this is probably after the VPN the next important thing to be achieved. Okay, the other things are sort of fairly straightforward, but the DFS, the VPN are the trickier ones. I would order them. I'll be defining the VPN as the most trickiest, DFS second. Okay, so what is DFS? Okay, let me see if I've got a couple of diagrams here that we can actually explain it in plain English before we actually. All right, we'll take this diagram. We'll explain it in plain English before we actually go through the PowerPoints. So DFS stands for Distributed File System. Okay, I know this diagram is very complicated right now, but don't focus on the details. Focus on the things I point out. DFS can be thought of in 3 ways. Okay, if we focus on just these 2 computers right now, DFS could be used to actually used for a replication. What does that mean? We have a file server here in Adelaide. We have a file server in Noarlunga. And obviously, if this contains our L drive for our student files, well, we teach the same subjects, don't we? Here in Noarlunga and Adelaide. Wouldn't it be good if we had the same files? Wouldn't it be good if I actually updated a file because it was wrong, that if I updated it here, it will automatically end up here, the new version? So DFS replication can do that. It replicates changes. It can be one way or 2 ways. So one way is like if changes can only be made here and replicated here, or both ways, 2-way, which means changes can happen anywhere, and the changes will be replicated to the other site. Okay, that's one reason why you might use DFS. Another reason that you might use DFS is that, hey, I might have multiple file servers on the same network. All right, we might have multiple file servers on the same network. Let's say that these are 2 file servers on the same network now. Forget about them being on different sites. They might be on the same network now. But like I said, would the average user know to go here for, let's say, project data, go here for sales data? It's pretty annoying to go to different places to get 2 different types of data. Wouldn't it be good if I can go to one place and get both data? So what we can do is actually use DFS to aggregate or combine many file servers and make it look as if to the user it's the one file server. Okay, make it look like it's the one file server. In this example, these 2 users are both going to this DFS server, but because of one thing or another, they might be going to 2 different physical servers, depending on which one has their data. But to them, they only see one server. And the third reason that you might have DFS is the combination of those 2. Okay, so in this situation, we have 2 locations, New York and London. and we have DFS replication that makes the data the same on both. Okay, I'm here in London. I'm using my laptop. I'm modifying my project files. I go to my DFS namespace and I get redirected to the London server because that's closer, isn't it? It'll be very weird if I actually am in London and now I'm trying to access and modify files which are in the New York server. So what DFS can do is actually refer you to your local server. Okay, so in this case, I'm accessing the same namespace. It's not a different namespace. It's exactly the same namespace. But because DFS recognizes I'm in London site, I'll be redirected to my local server, which means I can access it at LAN speeds, gigabit or more, rather than through WAN speeds, in this case from London to New York, probably through the Atlantic trench with whatever connection they have in there. But well, let's say I jump on a really fast jet and I go for an all-night flight and I get into New York and next morning. I open up my laptop. I want to work on the same project files that I was working on yesterday. But now I'm in the New York office and I actually access this exact. I didn't have to change anything. I just access exactly the same namespace. Still the same, contoso.com marketing. But in this case, my DFS server here will recognize I'm now in the New York site. It will redirect me to the New York server. Again, accessing the local server for my location. You get me, guys? DFS for replication between many file servers. DFS for consolidating many file servers into so that it looks like one to the user. Or DFS, which refers you to your local DFS server rather than a remote one. Okay, so that's effectively what DFS is doing. So let's actually go through the PowerPoint now with that in our brains. So DFS incorporates technologies that provides fault-tolerant access to geographically dispersed files. So what does that mean? It means that if we have a copy here in Adelaide, copy in no longer, Adelaide site burns down, still got a copy. Doesn't that mean fault-tolerant? Okay. Geographically dispersed means in different areas. And obviously, if I'm at Noarlunga, I will access the Noarlunga one at a higher speed than if I access the Adelaide one from Noarlunga. So DFS technology includes what's called a namespace. Okay, the namespace is basically, you saw it, that example. It's your, you know, we've seen this // format before, don't we? Haven't we? It's called our UNC. But usually it's \/ server name, share name, just like these ones that you see down here. Okay, but when we use DFS, instead of using a specific server, because it's no longer aligned to a specific server, it's actually aligned to any server that's participating in this namespace. We actually put \/ domain name, / the resource name, and then underneath those we have the different shared resources. Okay, guys. So we have a namespace. We have DFS replication. So we all understand what replication is. It's basically taking data on one and replicating or copying onto another. Okay, we know that from Active Directory replication, but this is to do with file system, file server, data replication. What is a DFS namespace? A DFS namespace can be configured as either a domain-based namespace that's stored in Active Directory domain services, which is probably the most common way it's used. It increases the redundancy for the namespace hosting, which means there's more than one server with it. Or you can have a standalone namespace, so where there is no Active Directory. So it's just a standalone server. There's a namespace is stored on a local server and only redundant if they're stored on a failover cluster. But like I said, this is probably not common. The way we're going to use it in our assignments is domain-based, and that's probably the most common way of using DFS. DFS replication. Characteristics of DFS replication includes it uses the RDC. It uses a staging folder to stage files before sending it or receiving it. It detects changes on the volume by monitoring the USN journal, and it uses a vector version exchange protocol and can recover from failures. Okay, let's go back and talk about what these actual points mean. a staging folder. Okay, so who's played like a game called StarCraft or Warcraft or something like that? Anyone here? Yeah, some of you guys. Some of you guys have. So sometimes you can set a rally point, can't you? So therefore, when you're training all these units, instead of just hanging out in your bases where they are, you're actually telling them to go somewhere. Okay, so go somewhere, preparing for an attack of your opponent. Okay, so basically a staging folder is built like that. Okay, so we've got our actual data on one server, and we've got the other server, and this data needs to be replicated across. So we actually put the changes in a staging folder or a rally point, and then we actually send it via replication. And if we're receiving it, we also keep it in the staging folder before we actually change our actual data. It detects changes, so basically the changes triggers replication. If there's no change, no replication required. Okay, but if there's a change in the files or the data, it triggers a replication, and the replication takes place. Okay, it looks at the USS journal. So if you remember, NTFS was a journaling file system. It can keep track of changes. It uses a vector version protocol, vector version exchange protocol. What does that mean? Vector is a direction. Okay, so basically, if I have a change here on the Adelaide server and I have a Noarlunga server over there, the direction is from Adelaide to Noarlunga. So that's the vector. So vector version means the different versions, right? Exchange. It's a protocol. It's a way of doing that. Okay. So that's what all of these are meaning. So in this example, like I explained previously, we have a DFS namespace that incorporates a server from New York, server from London, and they all form this DFS. Data is replicated between the servers, so data is exactly the same. So I might be working on a project in here in London in the morning. I've been working on it. Now I get onto my flight. I can't work on it anymore. I fly across the Atlantic. I get to New York, and I haven't finished that project, so I want to open up my laptop and we'll keep on working on it again. So I open up my laptop, the data is exactly the same because it's been replicated, and I open it up, I use the same namespace, and now I'll get to the New York server instead of the London server because that's my local server now. Faster speed, yeah, obviously it's easier access because we don't need to go through some sort of WAN link. What is data deduplication? And hopefully you guys still remember that from 5ICW, that data deduplication is a method for detecting duplicate files. Okay, I gave the example. What if we all downloaded a copy of the Server 2016 ISO and we all stored it on the file server because that's where we store files, right? If we all stored it under our home directories, it'll be in this classroom, there'll be 21 copies of it. 21 copies of about 5 to 6 gigs. That's a lot of data, isn't it? We'll be filling up our file servers in no time if that was happening all the time. So data deduplication means that it's going to go and detect duplicates. It's not going to detect duplicates as soon as you put the files on there, but every night or wherever you scheduled it, it's going to run through the file system and find duplicates. It doesn't even matter if you've named it Server 2016 ISO and you called it Windows Server 2016 ISO and someone else called it Microsoft Windows 2016 ISO or any naming convention, okay? It doesn't care about the names. It's looking at the data itself, okay? It's comparing the data to make sure the data is identical. Once it determines it's identical by using its algorithms, it will say, hey, I'm going to take this data, I'm going to store it once, okay? All these people that have stored it in their different locations, they're still going to keep it in those different locations, but they're all going to refer to this piece of data. Obviously, if this is not ISO, if this was a file, if they make alterations, then that becomes different. They spawn off their copy of that data, don't they? But essentially, if they don't make changes, that data is only stored once. So in this room, if we've got 20 people, and we've got an ISO that's 6 gigs, so that's 20 times 6, that's that's 120 gigs. Yeah, 120 gigs. Okay, 120 gigs of data. Instead of storing 120 gigs of data, we're going to store 6 gigs of data only. That's a big saving, isn't it? Huge saving. And if you think, and obviously it's a big example because it's a big file, but sometimes the savings is better when it's lots of little files. Just think of all the little PowerPoints you guys have downloaded, all the worksheets you've downloaded, all the little things that you've been getting a copy of for yourself, and you've, let's say, instead of putting it on your portable hard drive, you put it on your file server. And think of a company that has hundreds of users. If the CEO sent out an email with a PowerPoint about this new restructuring of the company, and everyone takes a copy and put it on their home drive, and they've got 1,000 to 2,000 users, that's a lot of files, isn't it? Even if they're small. So data deduplication provides a capacity optimization, meaning that we're not restoring redundant data. We're storing, if it's the same, storing once. It's scale and performance. Basically, it doesn't matter if it's actually a small size or large size. It works and it increases the performance. There's reliability and data integrity. So basically, reliability means it's keeping data in a reliable way, and obviously the data doesn't get corrupted, and it's maintaining its integrity. Bandwidth efficiency, simple optimization management, and so that's pretty much as we're going to talk about the data deduplication in this subject. But basically, we did it in 5ICW. We haven't asked you to do it in this subject because obviously you don't need to do everything twice. Some things, yes, because we need users, we need folders to do other things, but we don't necessarily need the data deduplication in our assignment. In real life, definitely big deal. Another example is your virtual machines. You remember how we just had our golden master and all these clones? In real production networks, you don't have linked clones, you have just full clones. But if we had 20 full clones of a server with operating system of Server 2016, if you think about the operating system files, how much of it would be exactly the same between the clones? All of it, pretty much, isn't it? The operating system files. So therefore, if you've got 20 clones, why store it 20 times? Store it once with data deduplication. That works really well in that example as well. Here's some more about DFS. So here's a couple of scenarios. So we have a branch office hub and a branch office and a hub site, and sharing files across the offices. So basically, Adelaide campus, Noarlunga campus, and we can access the files, and the files get replicated back and forth. So we've got the same copy. There could be a data collection scenario, which means that we've got the head office, we've got all these branch offices, and every month the branch offices have to submit a report. Instead of actually sending it by email, they just put it into a folder that's on DFS, and that folder gets replicated to the head office, and the people at the head office can read these reports. In this case, the replication is one direction only. It could be distribution. So we've got head office and branch offices, but this time it's actually from the head office, we want to give out materials, resources. We don't want changes to happen from the branch offices. So in that case, I'll give you an example. For example, our IT studies NAS, we've got all our ISOs, we've got all our virtual machines in that IT studies NAS, don't we? We've got it set up like this, where Adelaide campus is the hub, which means if you want to make changes to any of the files, like the ISO files, the virtual machine files, you have to store it on the Adelaide server first. And these branch offices could be Mount Gambier, could be Noarlunga, could be Berry, could be Port Lincoln, all of these other sites of TAFE SA. But when we want to create a new virtual machine and we want to give it to our students, we put it on the Adelaide site, and it gets replicated to all the other branch sites. All right, so deploying namespaces to publish content. To configure namespace publishing content, create a namespace, create a folder in the namespace, and add folder targets. So this will make a lot more sense when you actually do DFS, okay? So basically, we create a DFS namespace and a resource folder, or a folder, shared folder. Inside of there, we put the different shares, like production, like office admin, like EC documents. Okay, so, and we identified the targets. The target could be Adelaide file server and Elizabeth file server. The two different targets. Okay, and we will set the ordering method for target referrals, which means that, hey, which one should you go to first? Okay, and in that referrals, we can actually identify if you'll go to the local one first. Okay. Some optional tasks include target priorities to override referral ordering, Enable client failback. Failback means, hey, if I've been referred to go to Norlunga's DFS server, but that's not available, I can come back and go to the Adelaide one, even if that's the one that's over the WAN link. Replication folder contents. We're using DFS replication, and we can also delegate namespace administration. And what does that mean? That means when you delegate something, you actually allow someone else to do your job for you. So if I'm too busy to do everything, I might want to have Anthony do something for me. In order for Anthony to do that job, he must be given a certain level of access. So when I delegate that to him, I give him a level of access where he can do a job. That's what the delegation means here. So some common tasks and what group you need to belong to if you want to do it. You notice that it's domain admins comes up quite a lot. If you notice, I've been telling you guys, whenever you're doing these worksheets where you're working on a computer that's not the domain controller, always log in as the domain admin, haven't I? And that's the reason, okay? Because a lot of these services require you to have access not only on the local computer, but also on the rest of the domain as well. So when you actually do that as a domain admin, you're already a member of the local administrators group anyway. But you're also a member of the domain admins, which means you can have rights on every other server that's in domain. So we need to create a domain-based namespace. You've got to be a domain admin. You need a namespace server to add a namespace server to the domain namespace. Domain admin, manage a domain-based namespace. You could be a local admin on each of the name servers, or you could be a domain admin. Okay, which basically puts you as a local administrator on each server anyway. Create a standalone namespace. Well, standalone means not in a domain. So therefore, local administrator. Manage standalone. Anytime you hear standalone, it means not in a domain. So local administrator. Create a replication group that enables DFS replication on a folder. You need a bit of domain admin. So in general, domain admin. Optimizing namespace. So methods for optimizing a namespace include renaming or moving a folder, disabling a referral to a folder, specifying a referral cache duration, and configuring namespace polling. Okay, so these things are some tasks you could do after the fact to make it run better. So some troubleshooting, and trust me, you'll probably have heaps of opportunities to practice troubleshooting on your DFS, because I'm guessing, like if you're like every other group of students, that some of you will not get it working straight away. Okay, what I generally say is that if I've got the Adelaide and the Elizabeth's file servers, which one has the data? Adelaide initially, right? So I would go to the Adelaide one first, configure DFS, then go to the Elizabeth one, join it to the namespace, and get the details from there. Okay. If I go to the Elizabeth one and try to create everything first, the folders don't even exist there yet. So you'll find you'll hit a couple of roadblocks straight away. Okay. So do it from Adelaide as the first server. So replication groups and replication folders. A replication group is this. So remember this for the exam. A replication group is a set of servers that participate in replicating one or more replicated folders. A replicated folder is a folder that is kept replicated on each server. And also, I forgot to mention something else. Remember before we were talking about file screens? Okay. There's two types of file screens. There's an active file screen and a passive file screen. Okay. So just like there's a soft quota and a hard quota, the passive file screen allows you to save this file to the system, but monitors you, reports you, logs you. Whereas the active file screen stops you from saving it and reports you. Okay, so there again, something to remember for the exam. Active, passive file screens, soft and hard quotas, and replication groups, replication folders. So the initial replication process. The initial replication process consists of a replication DFS replicating of the DFS replication settings. The primary member starts the replication. So who's the primary member in our assignment? Who do you think will be the primary member in our assignment? The Elizabeth or the Adelaide file server? Adelaide, because it has the files. The primary one has the files. The other one, or the secondary one, is the one that needs the files. And obviously, if we, in our situation, there's not a lot of data, is there? They're all empty folders, pretty much. But let's say you've got a head office that's been around for years and you've got heaps and heaps of data. That replication process, the initial replication process, may take a long time, especially if it's through a slow WAN link. So what you can do is actually, sort of get the data onto a portable hard drive, manually move the hard drive to the location of the site, branch site, and replicate from that hard drive. So we can actually replicate to a hard drive and then to the branch site from a hard drive. So that speeds up the initial process. Files are moved to the DFS private pre-existing. Files are compared and replicated. Primary member designation is removed. So once that initial replication is done, there's no more primary or secondary members. They're all equal. Okay, unless you've chosen to actually make it so it's a one-way replication. If it's just regular, it's two-way replication, then they're both equal. There's new PowerShell commandlets that allows replication database to be cloned and seeded on a new DFS member to reduce the impact of initial synchronization on the network. So what does that mean? That means basically putting it onto that portable hard drive, physically moving that portable hard drive to the new location, and then synchronizing from that portable hard drive instead of having to send terabytes of data through the WAN link. There's a file staging tuning allows you to control what minimum size of files will be staged before replication to optimize the replication. Okay, the amount of space. Here's some DFS troubleshooting tools. The health report. It reports. It's used to report replication statistics and tell you the general health of your DFS replication. Propagation tests generates a test file to verify replication. It basically, this propagation test, you know what I do? I just create a new file on the folder that I'm replicating. If I create a new file here and I see it over there, then it's replicating. But this propagation test does the same thing, but not necessarily manually like I just described. Propagation report reports on the propagation test and provides a replication statistics. Verified topology, a report on the current status of the members of the topology. And there's also a DFS diag exe command line file, command or executable that monitors replication state of a DFS replication service. Okay, guys, so that's the end of the PowerPoint. So we'll stop it there.